BioBuds 29 here. Nah, just kidding. Just kidding. Just having a little fun with Subcool's nighttime camera entity there. Anyway, just wanted to do this quick video to show what goes on sometimes with your plants at night. Plants, like other organisms, have something which is called a circadian rhythm, and we humans have that too, and that regulates our levels of melatonin, and which of course is going to produce drowsiness and things like that to make us go to sleep. Well, in plants, it signals for them to do their nighttime ritual. And if you look at these plants, you can see that the leaves are drooping. They almost look like they haven't been watered. And this is the birthday cake. And it exhibits a pretty dramatic droop when the lights are off. And if you come over and look at the GDP times Harlequin, it's doing the same thing, but it's not as dramatic. You know, actually on this branch, you can see it's dramatic at the top. And I apologize for the focus, but my camera doesn't focus well without, I guess, light. The green light's not sufficient enough. But some of the other leaves aren't. Like, has this leaf right here. It isn't drooping. And this leaf's not drooping, like on the birthday cake, where you can see it's pretty dramatic. And when we come over to the other tent, where the blue frost and the blue cheese are, I affectionately call the blue tent. Now, everything's blue here. I'm a blue state guy, and blue all the way, baby. And that has no reference to Crips or Bloods. That's just, you know, my lefty politics. But we'll leave that out of this video. Well, if you look at the blue cheese, there is no leaf droop at all. But you look at the blue frost, and once again, you see leaf droop. Blue cheese, no leaf droop. Blue frost, leaf droop. And once again, that is the circadian rhythm that regulates when the plant is going to exhibit this. Now, my girls, about an hour and a half before the light cycle ends, they start to droop, and that's whether it's vegetative or whether it's in bloom. And part of the reason is because, you know, with the circadian rhythm, the plants regulate, they can sense and predetermine when that nighttime is coming, and they get ready for it, they prepare. Just like any other organism does when it's going to do its downtime. And so, you know, I've noticed this characteristic, of course, on plants I've been growing for a number of years. And I figured that there has to be some type of process going on when the lights are off. And during vegetative growth, many growers, including myself, I've done 24-hour periods of continuous light and neglected to give the plants any dark period when they're, you know, when they're young. When I put them underneath these LECs, I'm not running them 24 hours. I'm going to only do 18 hours until I get ready to flip them. But one thing that triggers the nighttime responses in plants is the far red of the light spectrum that comes from the sun. After the sun goes down, and has the sun actually, you know, heads towards the horizon, lowers towards the horizon, only the longer wavelength of light actually reach the ground, especially, in your temperate zones, really in any zone. Let me correct myself. Before night, you see the far red and the red. That's why sunsets turn red. And even after the sun goes down, below the horizon, you still see the shades of red and orange for quite some time after the sun has gone down. Well, LECs, ceramic metal halides, do produce light in the far red spectrum. So when your plants are receiving that far red, it triggers a number of things. And I was just thinking one day, just thinking out loud, thinking about what happens to plants at night. So I did a little bit of research, and there's quite a bit of research on it, but one of the things I found interesting was that during the daytime, plants, especially annuals, because they have a limited amount of time to live, where they're going to produce seed and only live 1 year or one growing season. These type of responses are supposed to be more prevalent, and one thing a plant does at night, it uses its reserves to fuel the plant's metabolism. So during the daytime, the plant is of course producing carbohydrates and other components in the leaf tissue through photosynthesis. Well, the plants regulate themselves to store up a reserve of glucose and sucrose, and they convert that into starch. And so it's stored into the plant tissues as starch. And at night, that starch is degraded back into sucrose. And that appears to be a very important function of a plant. And that's how they get through their nights. So putting a plant on a 24-hour period doesn't give the plant any time to really store, or I should say to degrade starch. But at the same time, the plant knows how long the night periods are. It senses these things, and so it will slow its production of carbs and sugars, or I should say it will slow its it will slow its process of making sucrose into starch. I didn't think I was going to get that out, but let me repeat that. If the night periods are shortened, there will be less need of starch to be degraded into sucrose. So a plant will slow the process in the daytime of starch storage. Starch storage. As I said before, sometimes I am mangling the English language when I'm trying to do these vids medicated. So once again, I apologize. But as I was trying to say, it slows down the process of starch storage. And apparently plants can sense changes rather quickly. So it's very hard to starve your plant, so to speak. But if you manipulate your night times to different periods constantly, and you're interrupting your cycles, perhaps you may affect that process. As we all know, you can affect the process of blooming if you interrupt your light cycles with blue or red light. That's why we have green lights, because green light doesn't affect that regulation process. So that's just one function that goes on at night. And so that concludes me to believe that a nighttime period is essential for healthy plant growth. Now, I do realize that people do run their plants on 24-hour light cycles, and there appears to be no adverse effects. But maybe those effects are subtle or profound in a way that we don't understand. Anyway, that's just some food for thought. So if there's anybody else who has any knowledge on this subject, please comment, because it's an interesting topic to me. As I said before, I'm in this for the love and for knowledge exchange. You know, a lot of people are motivated by other things, and that's fine. We all have our motivations in life. Some people, cannabis is a cash crop, and I understand that. It is a cash crop. But for me, as I said, I'm just producing basically enough cannabis to satisfy me, Mrs. J, and a few friends. And that's enough for me. But at the same time, I'm trying to pass on knowledge that I've acquired and observations that I see. And hopefully, you know, there are people out there who will continue to help me, because I've received a lot of help. I didn't just walk through the door knowing how to do any of this. And so for all of those who have helped me, thank you. For all of the pioneers, we all should thank them. And it's a shame that many people who pioneered the whole cannabis revolution are going to be locked out to the major profits that big business is going to stick its greedy hands into. It's inevitable. It's the way all the laws are being structured, that eventually big business is going to take over the cannabis industry. Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm going to be producing my own. And hopefully, most of us out there will produce our own. That way we can ensure that we're getting a clean, healthy product with no pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, or traces of chemical fertilizers. So that's all I have for you today. We're going to do another video really quick, really soon I should say, where I'm going to send something out, a question for all the breeders out there. And that is, could you please get your hand on some land races? And let's start from scratch and get some land races, some heirlooms going. You know, it's nice that everybody has their genetics going and everybody, you know, is excited with all of their new stuff. But hey, there's some classic, dank, delicious strains that are all but gone. At least in America, we don't have those anymore. Cannabis used to be imported from all over the world, and we just had exotic strains and taste and flavors that you can't get today. And the only way is to go back to those countries, I imagine. And I'm not about to do it anytime soon, but perhaps in the future we can get that done. And so I'll talk about it more in the next video. Send a shout out to everybody. Growers love. Keep it green. Like, comment, or subscribe. This is Bio, and I'm out.